Ms. Tucker, more people have invoked their Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination in this job than they did in my former job. And I was a prosecutor, so that's saying a lot. And 2 of them are current government employees. And just so there's no misunderstanding, they're invoking their Fifth Amendment privilege in connection with their official duties. We're not discussing bank robberies or narcotics trafficking. We're discussing their official duties, and they feel the need to invoke their Fifth Amendment privilege. So I want to ask you to do something for me, okay? Have you seen the text from Mr. Roseman?
Yesterday, when the committee released the report, yes,
okay,
sir.
So you have seen these despicable homophobic slurs.
Yes, sir. I saw the information in the committee report.
Well, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. For me and, frankly, for our fellow citizens, before the close of business today, if you can, issue a statement on behalf of the IRS as to why he's still employed and still drawing a paycheck. If you've seen the text that I have seen, I would like an explanation as to how you can keep your job if you say things he said in your official capacity. Can you do that? Can you explain to us how you can keep your job and your paycheck despite these homophobic slurs?
Sir, if I might, as I said in my opening statement, based on the information in the committee report yesterday, I am sickened.
All right.
Not only as
I appreciate that, Ms. Tucker.
Not only as an IRS official, but
I really
also
do.
as a citizen.
I appreciate that. My question was actually a little more specific. Can you issue a statement by 5 o'clock today as to how someone who used this language in their official capacity as a government employee is still employed and drawing a paycheck? Can you explain that to us by close of business today?
Sir, if I might, we are having discussions at Internal Revenue Service.
How long do you anticipate those discussions are going to last? Because I just read the text this morning, and I've already reached my conclusion. So how long do you think it's going to take you all?
So we are having discussions with our general counsel.
How about close of business tomorrow?
So we're going to do our very best to follow due process, but candidly to also make sure we do this appropriately, because I think the committee's aware of the federal personnel rules. And we
If this doesn't violate them, Ms. Tucker, then we need to change them. If I understand your testimony, in part, the ambassador was interested in going to Benghazi because of interest that Secretary Clinton had in Benghazi. Is that fair?
That's fair.
All right. Now, Mr. Nordstrom, same thing to you. And if I'm unfair in my characterization, you need to correct me. I thought I understood your testimony to be that Secretary Clinton alone was able to approve facilities that were below specs.
That's correct. Part of the specs. There's two categories, SECA and OSPB. She is the only one that can authorize waivers for SECA. In this case, both apply because we didn't meet either.
So we are able to show that in part he went to Benghazi because of Secretary Clinton. In part, Benghazi was still open despite the fact it was below specs because of Secretary Clinton. And now to my third point, to complete the circle, who is Cheryl Mills?
Counselor and Chief of Staff to the Secretary.
And she was copied on that email, which demonstrably undercuts Susan Rice's talking points. And Cheryl Mills was copied on that email.
Mr. Gowdy, if I could add, Cheryl Mills was also the person that led our preparation for our October testimony. I'd never met her before, but that was explained to me who she was afterwards.
And apparently, she was also less than pleased with Mr. Chaffetz's visit to Libya, if I understood that testimony correctly, which I find stunning. He's a subcommittee chairman on oversight, one of the more decent human beings I've ever met. I've never known him to inspire that strong of emotion in anyone other than Ms. Mills. Let me say this to you, Ambassador, in conclusion. You have made a compelling case today for why it is important to tell other countries the truth. You made a compelling case that the decision not to tell the truth on Sunday morning talk shows adversely impacted our ability to get to Benghazi. You made a compelling case. All three of you have made a compelling case today on why it is important for government to tell the truth to its own citizens. So you made the case why we have to tell the truth to other countries, and you made the case on why you have to tell the truth to your own citizens. So if anyone wants to know what difference does it make, if anyone wants to ask what difference does it make, it always matters whether or not you can trust your government. And to the families, we're going to find out what happened in Benghazi, and I don't give a damn whose career is impacted. We're going to find out what happened. Mr. Morton, I will tell you from this vantage point, it does look like the decision to release detainees was a political determination and not a monetary determination. It appears to me that the release of detainees was part of a sequester campaign that included the fictional firing of teachers, the closing of the White House for student tours, the displacement of meat inspectors, and now we're going to release aggravated felons, some aggravated felons, onto the street. Now, I've counted 6 times you have said you didn't want to rob Peter to pay Paul. I don't want Peter or Paul to rob one of our fellow citizens because you guessed wrong on who to release. So, of the level, what is a level 1 violator?
A level 1 offender. First, I obviously disagree with your characterization about these being political.
Well, that's fine. You can use your time to disagree with my characterization. Don't use mine. What is a level 1 violator?
With regard to level 1 offenders, they are aggravated felons.
And how many were released?
Congress. There are 4 presently.
How many were released?
8 were released. We have 4 presently released.
And what went wrong with the other 4?
What's that?
Why were there 8 released and only 4 currently?
So the 2 were released when the computer records were not correct, and we went back and we looked at them and we brought them back in. 1 was a mistake, and then—
What kind of mistake?
Just where the instructions to the field were not carried out correctly.
All right, so if it's $122 a day to house 4 level 1 aggravated felons, then releasing them saves you what, about $600 a day?
Each day, that's right.
Right. You can't find $600 anywhere else in your budget?
We make determinations on a case-by-case basis.
Can
We've got to
you find $600 somewhere else in your budget?
The question is whether that $600 is well spent on those people or someone else. And when it comes to somebody who's been a 44-year lawful permanent
I'm not talking about the 44. Was he a level 1?
I'm going to find $600.
Was he a level 1?
Something else.
Was he a level 1, Mr. Morton?
He is a level 1 offender.
He was one of the 4 that you released?
No, that he is released. That's okay.
Mr. Morton, who made the decision to release detainees as part of your effort to comply with sequestration?
The determination was made by Mr. Meade, the Executive Associate Director for Enforcement and Removal Operations, in consultation with the Chief Financial Officer.
Who was John Sandwig?
Mr. Sandwig works for the Secretary.
Were there any conversations with him?
Not that I am aware of.
Were there any conversations with the Secretary?
Not that I'm aware of. I think the Secretary has noted that she was surprised and regretted the timing and the notification, and I agree with that.
If the release of aggravated felons does not rise to the level of something that the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security should know about, what does rise to the level?
Listen, we release people every day, and the idea that we are going to review every single person that is released.
You release thousands of people every day?
We release thousands of people every month. We operate in a system. We had 407.
But you don't blame it on sequestration, do you, Director Morton?
What's that?
You don't blame it on sequestration when you release the others. It's not part of this. It's not part of this strategy to get the public fired up that mayhem is upon us, that we're closing the White House for tours, that we're firing teachers in West Virginia, we're going to have to release level 1 aggravated felons because of sequestration?
First of all, that was never said. And the system allows for the release on supervision of people going through immigration proceedings. We are not detaining people for penal reasons solely for purposes of removal. And as I've said, the vast majority of people in proceedings by statutory design are not mandatory detention.
Who are level 2 violators, offenders?
They are either multiple misdemeanors or felons that Congress has defined as something other than.
And DUI would be a misdemeanor, right?
DUI would.
First offense? How about second offense?
Depends on state law, but most times.
Well, how about the states where you release people? Did you release any recidivist drunk drivers?
Yes.
How many?
I don't have the exact number, but we have released many individuals who had DUI offenses.
Repeat offender DUI?
Repeat offender DUIs. Most of them were single offenders, but some would be DUIs. I would note, for the record, Mr. Gowdy, Congress has not provided that a DUI is a ground of removal. In fact, most misdemeanors are not a ground of removal. It is the agency, by agency policy, that factors that in. I can't order you removed for having committed a DUI offense.
No, you can't,
That's not
Director,
a ground
but you
of removal.
certainly can request a programmatic rescheduling so you can move money around. And this notion that you don't want to rob Peter to pay Paul, you could have easily done that. You could have found $600 to keep these level 1 violators from being released, and don't act like you could not have. Do you agree with me that the Constitution means the same thing whether there's a Republican in the White House or a Democrat in the White House?
I absolutely do.
Did you object when Harry Reid was having these pro forma sessions when President Bush was in the White House?
Nobody asked my opinion at that time.
Did you write any law review articles on it?
I'm sorry, no, I did not write any law
Did
review
you write
articles.
any columns in any trade magazines on it?
No.
So you only give your opinion when it's asked? You don't ever just decide, hey, this is wrong, I'm going to write a law review article or an op-ed piece and criticize the fact that the Senate is engaging in this travesty to thwart appointments?
I'm usually too busy practicing law to write op-ed pieces.
Well, we appreciate you taking time out of your busy practice of law to come today. What is your definition of a recess?
I would prefer not to opine on that. I'm a labor lawyer, not a constitutional scholar.
Well, ma'am, you can't have it both ways. You can't come and testify on a hearing about recess appointments and then decline to answer the seminal question, which is, what is a recess? If they were to take a nap, which happens from time to time in the U.S. Senate, is that a recess?
Well, my understanding was that I was asked not to testify about recess appointments, but to testify about the effect of the Noel Canning decision.
Who in the world asked you not to testify about something?
No, that I was not asked to testify about that, but that the topic of the hearing is the future of the NLRB, what Noel Canning versus NLRB means for workers, employees, and unions.
That very case dealt with recess appointments, so you can understand why I would ask you, what's your definition of a recess?
I don't have one to offer at this time.
But you agree it should be the same thing whether there's a Republican in the White House or a Democrat in the White House?
Certainly.
And would you also agree that when the Senate passes something like the payroll tax extension, did anyone challenge that as being outside the normal course of Senate business, that they weren't legally constituted to pass that payroll tax extension?
I'm not aware of any challenges to that.
So how can you be in session for purposes of passing a bill but not in session for purposes of making a recess appointment?
I'll leave that to the constitutional scholars to argue.
Well, what's your opinion?
In my opinion, the appointments were proper.
Wow.